The story begins with our hero getting teleported to another world and checking out a rather shady game screen, which gives him intrusive abilities. He is amazed by this display and says that he has some great luck. He realizes that if he is actually able to use this skill, then he can finally satisfy all his desires. The rest of it is up to the girl who is in front of him and is supposed to be some kind of princess. He touches the screen and mocks the princess for being a useless person who does not recognize the rights of people who have been summoned from another world. What follows is a deceitful tale. But before that, we need to learn exactly how our hero, Shinohara Shinto, landed up here with such a curvy babe. We are told that a few hours ago, Shino was transported to this world to defeat the Demon King by becoming a hero. We can see that the princess is standing right in front of him with her knights, but she does not have a very friendly look on her face. Shino then learns that there is a skill system which is granted to the heroes of this world. There are 10 skills in total, but only 3 of them are awakened upon the summoning ritual. The rest of the skills can only be obtained once the hero takes part in explorations and battles. As of now, Shino has been given the 3 skills of character introduction, perfect counter, and otherworldly transfer. The first 2 are easy to understand because the names kind of speak for themselves. As we can see, introduction of a character would mean some kind of appraisal skill, while the perfect counter could be used to knock out your opponent. The third one, though, is a bit difficult for him to understand, and from the looks of the screen in front of him, Shino can say that he will not be able to go back to Japan anytime soon. In the middle of all this, the princess is saying something to him, but he is not able to follow her at all. This is way too much for him to understand all at once, and he wonders if he should try one of his skills for this. He is only pretending to listen to the princess, as learning about his skills is the top priority. Anyway, he decides to completely ignore the princess, and then whips out his skills. He is going to start with character introduction, and we'll see how the princess responds to it. He uses it on the princess and learns that her name is Alicia Felt-Kusla. She may look cute, but the appraisal skill shows her true form, even though she is the second princess of the kingdom. It turns out that she does not like demi-humans, beast men, or even people from other worlds. She does not consider people like Shino to be human, and seems to enjoy the pain of such people, thus establishing her as a shady princess. Our hero also learns that Alicia likes to exploit heroes, and uses them as tools to get her work done. She had used the summoning ritual on him with ill intentions, and is already hoping for him to meet a cruel end once he serves his purpose to her. Shino realizes that he is dealing with a royal family member who likes to stab people in the back, so this is not some kind of fantasy adventure he would enjoy. He needs to be serious around her, otherwise it will not end well for him. At first glance, Shino can sense that Alicia's men also share the same opinion as her, so he will remain in danger as long as he is in her custody. Our hero begins by asking Alicia to return him to his own world, but as expected, she has no such intention at all. She goes on to tell him that once a hero has been summoned to this world, he can't go back to his original world unless he gets rid of the Demon Lord first. Shino can't believe this, but Alicia tries to act cute and says that it is just how the hero summoning ritual works. She continues to act in front of Shino and says that it is completely normal for him to feel nervous upon being randomly summoned to another world. The princess then says that she will take Shino to a place where he can calm himself, and the bright smile on her face confuses him a bit. He finds her to have good manners, and he can't seem to sense any kind of ill will from her. That's when it strikes him that his first skill could be giving him false information about Alicia. After all, he should not just trust a random skill so easily when he has just been transported to a world that he knows nothing about. He decides not to jump to any conclusions about the princess just yet because everyone seems to be treating him quite well. He also notices that Alicia is cute and curvy, but reminds himself that appearances have nothing to do with intentions, so he should just calm down his intrusive thoughts. Now, Shino is taken to a luxury room which has a table, modern seating, and a screen, which is a bit too advanced for this generation. Alicia decides to leave Shino in the care of two of her slaves, and says that he can ask them for anything that he would like. Shino asks Alicia if she has to go somewhere right now, and she explains that she needs to return to the royal palace at once. Basically, she has to inform the court and her father about the success of the summoning ritual. Once this is done, she can introduce our hero to the king of this land, so Shino says goodbye to her. After she leaves, our hero decides to open the system screen and check if there actually is any way for him to go back to Japan. Since he has the third skill of otherworldly transfer, Shin can perhaps try to direct the destination to himself. However, when he actually gives it a go, the system shows that the target location has been locked. Our hero figures that he should have expected something like this, and he realizes that he will need to defeat the Demon Lord first if he is to unlock the destination of Japan. After he takes a look at the system stats, Shino wonders if he can use his powers on a person such as Alicia, because it would be very helpful for him to do so. After all, he will be able to control the second princess and make her do as he pleases. However, this would depend on a lot of things, and he still has a lot of questions that he would like to have answered. There isn't any time to worry about such things, so he decides to use his first skill on the slaves that have been chosen to serve him. The boy is 24 years old, and his name is revealed to be Roland Igal. He seems to be a young knight in the royal order, but the problem is that he has been taught about people from other worlds being monsters. The cute maid girl is Harem, who is 28 years old. She serves Alicia, but has always been given the job to serve heroes who have been newly summoned to this world. What's worse is that she absolutely hates her job, which makes Shino a bit concerned. He still wants to give the people of this world a chance, so he says that his skill might not be perfect. He also needs to learn more about the rest of his skills, so he summons the system once again to take a look at them. Once again, it's easy for him to understand the first two powers, but it's the third skill that still has him confused. He maintains the opinion that his character introduction skill has some kind of weakness, and he shows frustration upon not being able to figure how to use his otherworldly transfer skill. It could be that it will become easier to use with time, so Shimo will need to test it whenever he gets the chance. As per whatever he's learned about Alicia and her slaves, he can't really trust anyone around here, and he is all on his own for now. Some time passes by, and then our hero is asked to come along to meet the king of this land. He does as he is told, and soon enough, he is in front of King Kusla in the royal court. Shino uses his character introduction skill and learns that the king's real name is Rastoa. He is 50 years old and is actually a very normal king. He neither likes nor hates people who have come from other worlds, so he is neutral on the matter. Alicia is also there, standing next to her father, but she does not even want to look at Shino, probably because of her feelings towards humans from Earth. Now, the king takes this chance to thank our hero for coming here to save them, even though he was forcefully summoned. He also asks Shimo to lend the people of his kingdom the strength that would be needed to stop the Demon King. Shimo says yes to him like a good boy, but is amazed to see how the king even dares to ask such a difficult task from him. Now, King Rastoa says that even though the hero's duty is to defeat the Demon Lord, this does not mean that he has to set out on his mission immediately. This is a bit confusing to Shimo, so he asks for clarity, but even a simple question like this seems to annoy Alicia for no good reason. Now, the king tells Shino that he has not mastered the skills that are needed to defeat the Demon Lord. Basically, he will need to practice and hone these skills for 3 months, after which he can leave on his mission. The king asks Shino if this would be enough time for him, as there is no point in being a hero without any mastery of skills. At this rate, Shino won't even be able to beat the weakest monster in this world, so the king wants to assign a tutor to him. He then says that Shino can depart to defeat the Demon King only after the tutor approves of his training. Once again, our hero says yes, but he can't believe that he is being made to do military service, as if it is a given for him. He then tells King Rastoa that he is new to this world and does not understand anything about it. This is why it would make sense for him to be assigned a cultural tutor as well. And the king grants this request without any hesitation. Shino is asked to give it his best, and even though he does not wish to do this at all, he bows down and agrees to the king because it would only cause trouble for him to make a scene here. Later, we see our hero in his room, and he laments that he will have to wake up early for practice the next day. There's no use for him to pray either, because that will not work in a different world. As he prepares to get some rest, Shino still can't get over the fact that there are people in this world who are literally taught to hate people from other worlds. He does not like this line of thinking and complains that this world is not fun at all. So it is very different from the manga comics and anime that he used to consume in Japan. Since he can't really enjoy himself over here, Shino believes the better option would be to just find a way back home. The key to this could be his third skill, but then something unusual happens. Our hero gets an alert from the system which is asking him to save Alicia as a target. Shino realizes that the first skill must be getting linked to the third skill, and it can change its targets based upon the people that have been appraised. Now, Shino realizes that the princess and her slaves didn't even tell him anything about the 3 skills that were given to him. This could mean that they know what they are, but do not wish to disclose them to our hero. However, Shino figures that if this was the case, then they would have been a lot more cautious with him. After all, they would not want Shino to learn about Alicia's true intentions right from the start. Either way, one thing is for sure, and that is for the hero to defeat the Demon Lord. Basically, this means that if Shino were to lose his life before defeating the Demon Lord, then all of his efforts would turn out to be meaningless. On top of that, he does not even know how powerful his opponent will be, so he needs to learn a lot of things as fast as he can, especially when it comes to his skills. Since he has to master his third skill more than anything else, he will need to practice it on someone. Shino activates demon mode and says that the perfect target for him is the same person who summoned him here in the first place, meaning Princess Alicia herself. Of course, there's also the off chance that Shino's first skill may have given him false information, so he is in a tight spot. As he wonders what his next plan of action should be, he notices something odd once again on the system. It's a monitor that shows him Alicia speaking with someone else, which is a great thing for our hero, as he can now spy on the princess and see her true intentions. First of all, she asks the other person if Shino is behaving well, and is told that he is in his room. The discussions then move toward the next day, where we learn that Shino is going to be given a very hard time. Alicia really wants to bend him to her will as much as she can, and this is not good news for Shino. The two of them then talk about how our hero is essentially a monster who is hiding behind human skin, which is why they must make the most of him while they have the chance. Since his training program is for 3 months, the other person, who might just be Shino's mentor, asks Alicia if she will also travel with him once the program is done. Alicia then explains that she will have to do this as the hero is a good diplomatic tool which she can exploit. In order to keep the protection being offered by the Holy Kingdom, they need to prove their loyalty to it. This is why the princess believes that she will have to go along with Shino, even if she has to fake it. After all, she only looks at him as if he is a trash monster. But Shino does not appreciate such filthy words coming out of such a pretty face. He does not like the way she is speaking about him, so he wonders why she hates heroes so much. As he continues to watch the monitor, Shino sees Alicia taking her leave and getting excited about making Shino dance in the palms of her hand after he defeats the Demon Lord. This is cause for concern, because our hero did not anticipate any evil plans in store for him after defeating the Demon Lord. Now that he has seen all of this, he realizes that Alicia's cute looks and curvy body mean nothing if she has such evil intentions. This also proves that his first skill was right all along and reported the facts to him. Alicia is going to torture Shen after he gets the job done, thus cementing her as a truly awful princess. This doesn't bother him at all, but rather gives him relief because he can now unleash his own intrusive thoughts upon her without having to feel any kind of guilt. Now that he knows the truth about Alicia, our hero figures that it would be best to keep a constant eye on her. He can also safely trust all the other information his character introduction skill had told him before. He still circles back to his third skill, which is the otherworldly transfer. He does not understand what the system means when it says that the skill can transfer a designated target to another world. Suddenly, he gets a view of Alicia stepping into a steam room with a bath. At first, Shino is a bit concerned, because he is looking at the princess in a delicate state. But then he realizes that he might as well make the most of his new spy cam. He continues to gaze at Alicia and her twin peaks, but then he remembers what she said about having to play nice with a monster for a month. Alicia even said that the mere thought of it made her want to puke, which is pretty insulting, especially to Shino. He tells us that he would have actually felt guilty about this if he did not know that Alicia was such a filthy person. He will not turn the screen off, and will consider this as compensation for being kidnapped and forcefully summoned to another world. However, he must also keep in mind that this is a very serious situation, so he must not take it lightly. Our hero wants to use the third skill on Alicia, but he must wait till she is asleep. He wonders if he can try it while she's awake too, but it would make sense to play it safe for now. Soon enough, the princess goes to sleep, and this gives Shino his cue. He summons the system and inputs some details such as the target destination and the items that Alicia will have with her. He has decided to send Alicia to Japan for a minute inside a secluded room where she can't escape. He also seems to do something shady about her equipment and items, after which he activates the third skill. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupts and surrounds Alicia while she is asleep. Shino continues to watch what is happening as Alicia's body is lifted from the bed and then suddenly transported to another location, just as Shino had wanted, and he can also see that she is in Japan, exactly like he had mentioned in the system. All of it seems to have gone well for our hero, but he does realize that there are no special conditions attached to this skill. The only thing it can do is add new targets. And then Shino learns that he can also teleport these targets to any location of his choice. This gives him an idea, which is to transport Alicia to some jungle where she can be hunted down by lions and other wild beasts. Then, he learns that he can't use this skill in the middle of a battle, and it has other limits as well. This means that it won't be of much use against the Demon Lord. Even so, Shino now knows that he has the ability to send someone to another world, including Japan. This gives him hope that he will be able to return to his original world at some point of time. Shino continues to observe Alicia, and a minute passes by, so she comes back to the fantasy world. All of this has been as per his plan, but he notices that Alicia still does not have any and has instead landed on top of what she was wearing before getting transferred. This means that if Shino were to teleport a target, any equipment that they will be wearing will simply stay behind, and not magically return to the body. This is contrary to what he had thought would happen when Alicia came back, so there is a lot he still has to learn. He wants to try something new, so he decides to send Alicia back to Japan, but only for a small fraction of a second. This time, he mentions that the equipment should be the clothes which she was wearing before. He activates the skill again, and within this fraction of a second, Alicia goes and comes back to her bed. But this time, she has her clothes on. This is good news for him, but then he realizes something else. Since Shino has such a skill at his disposal, he could also use the system to equip his targets with tools that don't even exist. This could include imaginary tools or even legendary weapons. Shino gives it some more thought and figures that this should not matter in any case. The problem will arise if he gives someone important equipment, only for them to later not have any use for him. This can fire back on him badly, so testing the skills with weapons would be a touch too risky for our hero. On top of that, if he were to use imaginary equipment, then it would be even more dangerous for him. Now Shino gets an idea. He he decides to get a bit serious about the skill he has just figured out. He enters some data into the system, and we can see some blind folds covering Alicia's eyes. This extends to her arms as well, and Shino realizes that he can equip his targets with items from his own imagination. He can also destroy these items by setting a timer, which would keep him protected from any ill doing. He is quite pleased with the way things are going, as he has been essentially given a cheat skill for heroes. Shino now analyzes his system and takes note of something which he had observed earlier. It looks like an SNSD, and he wonders how it would look like in front of the receiver. He wants to consider the risks of such conditions and types in a message to the system. It basically says that the hero should be compensated for being summoned to this world. But when he looks at the system after that, the message sounds meaningless. Also, his name will simply fade away quickly, so it doesn't matter how often he tries this. Shino laments the fact that he can't get any compensation for being summoned, but then he picks on something even more important. If he is able to send this message anonymously, then he can make it seem as if an oracle or a higher power is saying it. It could increase the chances of him being able to manipulate Alicia's actions. If that is the case, he can get the princess to do anything he wants her to do, including shady things with her body. Of course, he can already do whatever he wants to Alicia in the current state. But he still wants to see if this message will have any kind of effect on the princess the next day. Shino is tired and wants to go to sleep, but his intrusive thoughts won't let him do such a thing just yet. After all, he did just take a nice, long look at Alicia's curvy body, so now he wants to play with her for a bit. He has already seen everything that he needs to see, so he wants to do something else. He goes on to write some extreme things into his system, and makes sure to set them all to vanish once Alicia wakes up. Shino feels a bit weird himself, but he knows that he has to get some fun out of this whole mess. With that, he activates the third skill once again and sends Alicia off to Japan for a short while. He then witnesses with his own eyes how his shady statements are now coming true in front of his very own eyes. The princess is experiencing some extreme sensations, so her body reacts the same way. Shino only sits there and enjoys the view as he sees Alicia's face turning red and her entire body sweating due to these sensations. This makes him figure that she is having intrusive thoughts of her own, even while sleeping. Suddenly, the blindfold falls off due to all the movements, so Shino worries for a bit. But then he remembers that the piercings and other items will disappear once the princess wakes up. This means that there is nothing for him to worry about. A lot of time passes by, but Alicia is still not waking up, which confuses our hero. He wonders if this is because she is tired, or if she is always like this. Things start to get really intense, but Shino continues to watch the show. She can't seem to take it anymore, so Shino decides that he has done enough to her for tonight, so he won't add anything on top of what is already being done to her. After all, this is a very cheap price for kidnapping someone and bringing them to your world. He almost feels as if he has gotten some kind of payback for what has been done to him. But the story is far from over just yet. He promises her that the next time, things can get even rougher if he wants them to, so she will need to be careful moving forward. With that, he wishes her a good night and sweet dreams, while she continues to enjoy the sensations of his third skill. The next morning arrives and our hero wakes up the moment the sun hits his face. He does not realize when he passed out, and is shocked to see that it is morning already. As he looks around the place, he remembers that he is still in another world, and whatever happened yesterday was not a dream. That's when he hears some noises coming from the monitor, so he goes to take a look at it, only to learn that the princess is still enjoying the sensations that he had activated the previous night. He can't believe that she has been experiencing this the entire night without waking up. So he wonders how shady she really is. This is a bit too much for any kind of person, so Shino wonders if this is because of the summoning ritual taking a lot out of her. Now he recalls what the king told him about training for 3 months, and he knows that this is not going to be easy for him. Leveling up in a game is a piece of cake, but the same can't be said about doing it in real life. Our hero laments that things could have actually gone well for him here if everyone didn't hate him so much. He remembers what Alicia was saying earlier about making him dance to her tunes, and it leads him to wonder just how shameless the people of this world can be. Either way, the only plan that might work for him now is to play along with the narrative and trick everyone into thinking that he is doing as they please. In the meantime, he can come up with a strategy to overpower them and find a way back home. Shino takes yet another look at the princess and is baffled by how intrusive her thoughts really are. Of course, he also comments that she is a really pretty girl if he were to just assess her by looks. He then thinks about a typical scenario where the hero is transported to another world and praised by everyone. In such a case, he would also end up falling in love with a princess and marry her. But that is a cliché situation. This is a completely different case altogether as Shino goes through the information he has collected on the princess so far. He gets reminded of how shameless she is, but also confesses that both he and Alicia are the type who like to bully others. With that in mind, he decides to forget about morals and enjoy the show. After all, he and Alicia are not that different when it comes down to mindsets. Of course, the fact that she is still not waking up is a bit of a concern for him, because it should not be, so that she will remain in a constant state of pleasure for the rest of her life. Suddenly, someone starts knocking on the door and calling out to Alicia. It happens to be one of the maids, and she is eagerly waiting for the princess to open the door. However, she is still asleep, and this could spell bad news for Shino. He did not think about this situation at all, because he had assumed that Alicia would wake up during the night itself. Since he does not have a plan B for this, he can only hope for luck to be on his side. We can see Alicia still in bed and enjoying her extended session. But Shino's worries only continue to rise after realizing how much trouble he can get in if the princess is found in such a state. Of course, the maid knows nothing about this, and she keeps calling out to Alicia, telling her that she has prepared her breakfast. It doesn't take a genius for Shino to figure that he will be taken in as the main suspect if the king were to find his daughter in such a shady position. After all, he was just summoned the previous day, so all the evidence will point towards him. Shino fears that he will lose his life while being surrounded from all directions, which will be a horrible fate for a boy who simply wants to go back to his own world. Meanwhile, another maid shows up and asks the first maid why it's taking so long for the princess to show herself. They discuss why Alicia is not responding, because they can faintly hear her voice, which is actually just her due to the sensations. Now, both the maids call out to Alicia, and our hero laments the fact that he did not set the items to disappear when someone else would enter the room. The stakes are high, and there's a lot riding on this, so Shino wonders what kind of skill he should use to wake up Alicia. Of course, there's always the risk of the maids seeing him use his skill, so he has to be very careful over here. The maids are getting restless, and they can enter the room at any time now, so Shino decides to take matters into his own hands, and he awakens the system. The maid asks the princess if she can come in, but all she can hear is a light moan that makes no sense to her at all. Soon enough, the maid decides to walk in anyway, and our hero worries that it's too late for him to do anything about it. At this very moment, it feels as if Alicia has experienced the ultimate finish, and then the maid enters the room to see what's going on with her princess. Tensions run high as she approaches the bed and looks around to see if anyone else is there. However, things seem to be quite normal as she greets Alicia with a good morning. She bows down to the princess, and to our surprise, Alicia responds to her while looking perfectly normal without any sweat on her body. The maid asks her if she had a pleasant rest in the night, and Alicia says yes, but she is well aware of the fact that she might have slept a bit too much. The maid tells her that it is quite normal for her to feel this way, because the hero summoning ritual must have taken a lot out of her. The princess agrees to this and proceeds to get out of bed, but then she notices something odd with her body. There is something dripping out of her body, and she is shocked to see this. Alicia becomes extremely shy and tries to hide all the residue of her pleasure from the maid. At this very moment, she hears the message that Shino had left for her, stating that the hero should be compensated for being summoned over here. None of this makes any sense to the princess, and she tries to understand from where this is coming. After all, she never would have, though, that she would hear such a thing. Since this is a bit too much for her to take in, Alicia asks the maid to leave the room, but this confuses her. She says that she has not yet helped the princess change her clothes, but Alicia obviously does not want her to see what happened to her. Once again, she tells the maid to leave, so she simply bows down to her and exits the room. After this, Alicia goes on to check what has happened below her clothes and feels the substance in her hands. She takes a look at the state of her body, and Shino is glad that he did not get caught. After all, if Alicia woke up even a few seconds later, then it would have been the end of him. This makes him wonder if the princess reached the ultimate climax at that very moment. It would have been a rather lucky moment for her to finish at that very second. Miracles aside, Shino had noticed that the princess was mumbling something earlier, so it could be that she has received his message. She did not realize that it was from him because his name did not show on the text, so Shino has to see if this was the right move for him. However, he has other things to worry about because he is tired, and he needs sugar to help his energy. Now, the two maids show up in his room and bring some breakfast for him. It's a rather delicious meal and Shino thanks them for it. But the maids maintain a straight face and tell him that his training will begin from this afternoon itself. He did not expect to hear this, but the maids tell him that he must finish his breakfast as soon as possible. After this, he will need to head to the training ground, which is not exactly what he had in mind so early in the morning. After the maids leave him alone, he rests on his bed and thinks about everything that has gone down till now. It's a bit troublesome for him, because Alicia is seriously affected by his actions. So as of now, the first round between them ends in a tie. As he makes his way through the halls, Shino states that it's a horrible way for him to start off his new day. He can't even enjoy his breakfast before he gets ready to train. He does not like that he has to do such things, and this makes him curious as to what the princess is doing right now. He suddenly sees her twin peaks right in front of his face, and he doesn't want this to happen in public. It turns out that Alicia is in the royal library, and she is unable to find any book that explains the point of compensation to the hero of a summoning ritual. Since none of the books have any information on this, it leads her to wonder why this is happening to her. Shino figures that Alicia is trying to get some intel as per the records of past heroes that have been summoned here. This is good news for him because it is a sign that she has taken his message seriously. After all, his name was not attached to it, so Alicia could be thinking that it has come from the gods themselves. This is a huge sign of relief for him because he now has her full attention. Shino can happily walk towards his training ground now, and he runs into a man who has a couple of swords and is waiting for him. This man is somewhat unimpressed by seeing how the hero looks like, and he introduces himself as Ruido. He states that he will be the person in charge of training Shino for now, and he is glad to see him. Our hero greets him as well, but does not sense any negative energy from him just yet. As a matter of fact, it may appear as if Ruido is a good guy. Of course, it's better to be safe than sorry, so Shino uses his character introduction skill on Ruido just for good measure. He is shown to be 42 years old, and also happens to be a believer in humanism. However, since he is the captain of the Royal Knights Order, he is on the same side as Alicia. If necessary, he will be ready to take Shino's life as well, and as expected, this is not something that he wanted to learn. Shino hilariously laments the fact that Ruido is also a shameless man, and is actually the first one he's met who wants to take his life. He clearly does not like that everyone in this world wants him to suffer, but he has to carry on with his plan and begin his training. Ruido decides to skip the formalities and decides to test Shino's current set of skills before they actually begin the program. Our hero is a bit confused by this statement, but then Ruido picks up his sword and suggests having a mock duel. It doesn't take long for him to begin with the offensive, as he charges towards Shino and launches a finisher move on him right from the get-go. Our hero is able to dodge this attack, and Ruido is impressed by his reflexes. Of course, he did go easy on him, but Shino finds that hard to believe. He can see that the very ground itself has been crushed, even though Ruido used a wooden sword for his attack. Shino wonders why his own mentor wants to end him in their first meeting itself. Maybe it is that he has found out about the shady things our hero did to the princess in the night. But that would be impossible simply based off Alicia trying to find a book on hero compensation. Before Shino can think about anything else, Ruido mentions that he's aware of a hero being brought to this world with 3 skills. He wants Shino to tell them what they are, and this comes as a shock to him because he was hoping for nobody to ask him such a question. He asks Ruido if he needs to know them right now, so he says that it will be important for his training. There is also one more reason, which is that he is simply interested to know what they are. Shino does not want to give in so easily, so he asks Ruido about why the kingdom does not know about them yet. The mentor asks him why he would think such a thing, and Shino states that they have already summoned heroes in the past, so they should have this much knowledge. Ruido admits that a hero summoning does happen once every 100 years, so Shino tells him that there must be records of those heroes from the past. Of course, he is also asking this so that he can get an idea of the kind of information Alicia will have access to. Ruido explains that records of these heroes do exist, but there is nothing that states each of the heroes from the past had the same abilities. This is why there is no reference for the skills that Shino has been blessed with. But our hero is not going to give in so easily. He simply asks Ruido to check his skills with appraisal magic, as he believes that the people of this world should have more details on him. After all, he's just got here and has no idea how society functions in this world. This is when Ruido sadly admits that if the people actually had such an ability, then they would have used it right after Shino was summoned. Ruido does not know how magic works in Shino's original world, but over here, magic is a technique which can only be used to fight against the demon lord. As a matter of fact, magic was invented only for the subjugation of this threat, so there is no kind of convenient magic for people to use normally. This comes as another surprise for our hero, because he thought basic powers such as appraisal would have been there. Then again, in Japan, there is no magic at all, so it's not like he would have had any idea about it himself. With this chat out of the way, Ruido says that he will teach Shino about magic later on. But as of now, he needs to focus on the skills that our hero has been blessed with. He goes on to strike Shino once again, but he manages to avoid this blow as well. The mentor insists on learning what his skills are. Of course, Shino knows that if he does tell Ruido his skills, then he risks exposing what he did last night. Ruido asks for the skills once again, and Shiny suspects something is up if he's trying to ask him this question so many times. At that moment, it strikes him that there is no such thing as appraisal magic in this world. So even if he lied about it, there would be no way for Ruido to know the truth. This is exactly why he's pushing him so much, in order to scare him into speaking the truth. This also explains why the first strike was a finisher move. All of these are intimidation tactics, and Shino sees it happen once again when Ruido asks him why he's taking so much time to answer his question. Another attack is launched his way, and Shino manages to dodge it. But he knows that he could meet his end if he messes up even once. At this very moment, Ruido gets the jump on him, and is actually going to use his ultimate finisher move on him. Shino needs to think of something really quick, so he decides to finally reveal the names of his skills. Just before Ruido can strike him, he says that the first one is called Character Introduction, which is actually the truth. The mentor wants to know exactly what the skill does, so Shino tells him that it gives him the basic information about the person standing right in front of him. Of course, this does not sound useful at all to Ruido, so he makes an unimpressed face. Shino knows that his mentor is hiding his emotions and being skeptical, because this is actually a good skill. After all, It helps him keep his guard up in front of people like Ruido and Alicia. Now, the mentor asks Shino what exactly the introduction tells him. So he says that it showed him how Ruido is the captain of the Knight's Order and has the best skills in the kingdom. Our hero has obviously left out the part that says he wants to end his life. So Ruido laughs and says that the introduction is not wrong at all. Shino even adds to this by saying he is not sure of how to use the skill just yet. It could be a form of communication for him since he is in a world that he is not at all familiar with. Ruido buys his story and declares that he does not understand the use of such a skill. Even so, it doesn't matter to him, and he wants to know the name of the second skill. Of course, Shino knows that he can't reveal the truth to anyone over here. He has to do his best to hide it as much as he can, so he decides to lie about the other two as well. He states that the second ability is called Summoner's Protection. He explains that it is a skill that will temporarily protect him from the person who has summoned him. Ruido figures that in this case, Shino will be able to use it against Alicia, so he has to talk to her about it. Now that he is done with two of the skills, he wants to know the third one. Shino pauses for a bit before revealing it, but then Ruido tries to strike him once again. The mentor reminds his student that they are still in the middle of a mock duel, and he will get hurt if he decides to speak nonsense. Shino can't come up with a random skill to explain to Ruido, and he does not want to reveal any of the other skills as well, since they can save his life when push comes to shove. He would rather not say anything, but Ruido is being a bit too pushy with him. This is when Shino realizes that he has another trick up his sleeve. As a matter of fact, it's a good thing for him because he wanted to test out this skill anyway. This is his chance to see how effective it can be, so he takes aim at Ruido and unleashes a deadly strike at him. A flash of light blinds everyone for a moment, but then we see that Shino has missed his target and also falls down due to a sprain in his ankle. Ruido is just standing there with a look of shock and awe, and then he turns around to see where our hero is. Shino gets up and tells his mentor that the skill he just witnessed is called counter, as he just showed him. This skill enables him to launch a counterattack on any opponent who takes aim at him. Ruido is satisfied by what he has seen, but Shino tells us that the name of the skill is actually called full counter. He has just made it sound weaker in comparison, so that he can use it as a backup if he is ever in a dangerous situation. Now that he has shown the mentor his actual sword skills, his lies must have sounded quite believable to him. Now, Shino learns that even though his move is called the full counter, it does not completely counter the entire attack. He does not have the technique to aim at his opponent just yet, so he still has a long way to go. Also, he has taken some damage to his arm, so he wonders it's been broken by Ruido's strike. However, it doesn't take long for him to notice something odd. All of a sudden, the pain vanishes and Shino is baffled, because his arm was hurting a lot just before now. This makes him speculate if he also has the ability to counter injuries. Even Ruido is a bit surprised by this, and he asks Shino how this was possible if his skill could only be used to counter his opponent. Our hero simply says that he does not know what happened here, and he lies that his arm is still hurting just to make sure he doesn't give too much away. Ruido wonders what would happen if he actually wanted to chop off Shino's hand, but he knows he can't try such a thing so early on. It doesn't take long for our hero to realize that Ruido is just saying whatever comes to his mind in order to get a reaction out of him. After all, he could be trying to get some information on Shino, which he can use later to end his life. Now, the mentor states that the only useful combat skill that Shino possesses is a counter, and that too, not something special. He comments that the hero of this century has been given a rather weird set of skills, but there's nothing he can do about it. Shino does not appreciate such an attitude, and then Ruido suggests taking a break before resuming training. As the men sit down for a breather, Shino decides to try something out. He tells Ruido that Alicia is quite the beauty, which takes him by surprise. Our hero continues by saying it's only been a couple of times that he's interacted with the princess, but he can say for sure that he has never come across a girl as cute and curvy as her. Ruido asks him if he has fallen in love with Alicia at first sight. So he says that even if he's a hero, he is also a man, so he can't ignore his intrusive thoughts. Ruido seems to have taken note of this, and Shino figures that he could be plotting something wherein he tries to use Alicia's beauty against him for an eventual betrayal. Of course, there is no way for him to know this, but he can try to convince his mentor that this is his weakness. Now that the break is done with, Ruido gets up and tells Shino to be prepared. He's not going to go easy on him this time, and this does not please our hero at all. Anyway, he is going to make sure that the princess repays this debt to him when the time comes. 3 months pass by like this, and we see our hero at the end of a training session, but it doesn't look too good for him. He is tired and the ground, so Ruido calls him pathetic and useless. If this is the shape he's in even after 3 months of training, then there isn't much hope for him against the Demon Lord. Seeing his condition makes Ruido a bit concerned, so he decides to take a break for now. Now Shino wonders if his training has any meaning to it at all. This is because he knows he is nowhere even close to Ruido in terms of sword skills. He decides to ask his mentor if using a sword would have any kind of effect on the Demon Lord at all. Ruido is a bit confused by this question, but it does make sense for Shino to ask it. He knows he will never be able to surpass his mentor, no matter how many months are invested into him. So, if a human with a sword was good enough to defeat the Demon Lord, then it would have made a lot more sense for Ruido to have done it himself. The mentor laughs at this suggestion because it's a valid point, but at the same time, it's also impossible. Shino doesn't get this, so he asks for a reason, but is devastated to know what it is. Basically, if a human were to go up against the Demon Lord and even stand in his presence, he would instantly lose his life. Shino lets out a massive scream to let his emotions be known to his mentor. Since he is a human as well, the logic will also apply to him, so he does not want Ruido to say such things lightly. The mentor continues by saying it does not matter how strong the person is, because the Demon Lord's magic can easily end them if he wanted it to. In general, there is not a single person in this world who can stand up against the Demon Lord, which is why the hero needs to be summoned from another world. If this isn't bad enough, Ruido also reveals that the Demon Lord is a plant, which means that he is reborn once every 100 years. Simply hearing this makes Shino shiver, because he can only imagine how deadly a Demon Lord would look like as a plant. Ruido isn't done yet as he states that the Demon Lord's mere presence would cause lands to go barren, disasters to be created, and monsters to be strengthened. At this point, Shino doesn't even know why he is training to take on such a deadly opponent. If the Demon Lord actually has such a skill of instant death, then even a hero would not stand a chance against him. However, this suddenly puts an idea into his mind, and he brings out his system. This has to do with his second skill, Full Counter, because it could have the power to counter the instant death move of the Demon Lord. If Shino were to use this skill properly, then instead of him, it will be the Demon Lord who would get hit with the attack. So, even if he were to face instant death, he would be able to counter the injuries and come out of the whole thing unscathed, while also defeating the Demon Lord. In conclusion to all of this, it can be said that a hero is the natural predator of the Demon Lord. How is our hero going to use this information to defeat the Demon Lord? Also, how is he going to take care of Alicia and Ruido in the middle of this mission? Like, share, and subscribe to find out in the next video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.